Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It was a drug bust hailed as a major win for Victoria Police 3 years ago, getting to the top of what they called the fentanyl trafficking pyramid. But now the case itself is a bust. The charges stayed and the public safety minister is outraged. We'll hear why and ask for your reaction. And we'll ask, when it comes to fighting the drug crisis, how is enforcement doing? After 12:30, we'll get into the gardening mode with Brian Minter. He'll take your questions. I'm Michelle Eliot. Welcome to BC Today. Thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on the CBC News app, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Well, the CBC's Jason Proctor broke the story this week that a courtroom judgment revealed how charges from a major drug bust in Victoria 3 years ago ultimately flopped, all because police concealed key details. Now, the drug case stems from a joint investigation led by Victoria Police. It was dubbed Project Juliet. It resulted in 3 arrests and the seizure of $30 million worth of fentanyl, along with firearms, cash, and luxury vehicles. It was a case that grabbed headlines, and Victoria Police at the time hailed the work as a success. But it turns out the charges against the 3 accused were quietly stayed. It turned out one of the officers originally involved in the probe had himself been under criminal investigation. Eventually, he was taken off the case, but his initial involvement was not disclosed to Crown prosecutors. Now, this week, Victoria Police Chief Del Manic apologized for the police role in the collapse of the trial. Yesterday, BC's Public Safety Minister and Solicitor General Mike Farnworth expressed his anger about the case.
I think it'd be fair to say that I'm as angry as just about everybody else when I heard the news about the staying of the charges in what was a significant and major drug bust in the province of British Columbia. I can also assure you that Vic PD has indicated that they will be making significant changes to ensure that this does not happen again. And I want to make sure that if there are gaps identified, that they are addressed. Because quite frankly, it's unacceptable what happened.
That was BC's Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth speaking yesterday. We're asking you, what's your reaction to this story? And how important is enforcement in fighting the toxic drug crisis? What are the developments on enforcement that you'd like to see? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. On your cell phone, you can hit pound 690 as well. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining me now is Wade Deisman, criminology professor with Kwantlen Polytechnic University. Wade, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. Nice to be with you.
I'd love to get your reaction to this case. It is quite something. But for perhaps, I tried to give a bit of a Coles Note summary there, but, tell us how this all fell apart.
Well, it looks like it was a very, very complicated kind of backstory here. The original investigation began, and then at a certain point, the Victoria Police began to have concerns about one of their officers because they were contacted by the RCMP anti-corruption unit. Those concerns were substantiated by the anti-corruption unit. And at a certain point, the anti-corruption unit actually arrested the police officer. But the Victoria Police appeared to have made a decision to proceed with the investigation, notwithstanding the fact that one of their own officers was under investigation for fraud. So there's a bit of a cautionary tale here. Sorry for not just fraud, but corruption, but a bit of a cautionary tale here. About the effects of these police officers when they're being investigated this way.
Right, and they had thought, what they thought at the time, part of me, was that they didn't want to sort of tip him off that he had been under, he was being watched, he was under investigation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, once that officer was arrested, they decided to reset the investigation. And so they began anew, and it was at that point, I think, that they made the decision to treat the whole thing as a new investigation. But when they reported this to the prosecutor and then to the Crown and then ultimately to the judge, they didn't reveal the fact that a previous investigation had been underway.
Right. You're right. It is very complicated. So in the end, the judge made that determination to stay the charges. How important is it, first of all, to disclose that? How significant is that it wasn't disclosed?
Well, I think it's fairly significant. This is a very rare occurrence when a judge will issue a judicial stay. It means that the charges can never be renewed. And the judge will only do that if there is a serious worry about justice being brought into disrepute by proceeding with the charges. And in this case, I think the fact that the defense attorney and indeed the justice themselves had been deceived about what the true circumstances were of the investigation was what prompted this decision.
And so what do you make of we have the Victoria police officer apologizing for any role that police had in the collapse of the case, although not pointing specific fingers at any of the officers besides the original one who had been under investigation and was arrested. You have the Solicitor General and Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth saying he's outraged by this. What do you make of the reaction? Why is this creating waves, the fact that these charges were stayed?
Well, I think that the public has for a long time had a deep concern and worry that this stemming the tide of this illicit drug flow is always a very, very difficult business. And so the public has been worried for quite some time about whether it's actually possible. And there's a great investment in it now because the crisis is not just staying on, it's actually worsening. And so there's, a great deal of hope that we're going to be successful in some of these operations. And so when at the 11th hour, victory is defeat is snatched from the jaws of victory like this, everybody is upset. And the fact of the matter is there's a great deal of resources that go into the investigation of these kinds of cases. So it takes a long time to get an effective case together. So this will mean starting from ground zero again. And these were three of what are heralded as the top kingpins in terms of this issue. And so it's a really bad defeat, I think, a really devastating defeat for rank and file police officers across the province who are working really hard on this issue.
How are we doing? Do we know how we're doing when it comes to enforcement and prosecution on that side of things of this crisis?
I was going to say, I think there are a variety of different measures. On the prevention front, I think we're doing better. I think our messaging and our education is out there. But on the interdiction and enforcement and securing convictions, I think we're constantly challenged. And the fact is that organized crime is becoming more savvy. It's evolving. We're talking about something we call polycriminality now, where they're involved in a variety of different fronts. They're involved in human trafficking as well as illicit drug smuggling, all of that kind of stuff. And so it's getting more and more challenging. And I just want to say that one of the challenges in this particular context is the coordination of forces across the province, right? We have this challenge in the Lower Mainland. And I think this is what signals the fact that the province is on the right track in terms of talking about a provincial police force, because we need some kind of network here. We need some kind of advanced system to coordinate our efforts. And this is where, when you had the Combined Forces Special Investigation Unit involved or Special Enforcement Unit involved, we saw an uptick in our capacity to deal with it. But we need more of that kind of thing to be able to address it in a fulsome way.
Wade Deisman is my guest. He's a criminology professor at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. We're taking your reaction to this story, the Project Juliet, that was dubbed as a major win for Victoria Police, an investigation that resulted in 3 arrests, the seizure of $30 million worth of fentanyl, along with firearms and cash. They said they got to the top of the fentanyl trafficking pyramid, while the charges from that case have been stayed, and all because of complications and essentially lack of disclosure when it came to who was involved, one of the officers who was involved in the initial probe. So at the end of that, we have an apology from Victoria Police. We have BC's Public Safety Minister saying he's outraged that members of Victoria's Police Department caused the collapse of this major drug prosecution. He said it was misleading, Crown Counsel. We're asking you for your reaction, and how important is the enforcement piece when it comes to fighting the drug crisis right now? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Chris is joining us from Hope. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Oh, yeah, I lost my son to fentanyl. He was my oldest son, and he was going through a divorce, and he was having a rough time, and he went and messed around with drugs, and he never had taken it before. I know that for a fact. And he just fell dead outside. So the stuff is so powerful.
Yeah.
Like, I have advanced rheumatoid arthritis, and I have to take pain medicine. It's quite potent, and I had to use fentanyl a long, long time ago. In fact, I remember when they had the patches out, and the doctors were getting caught with them 2 or 3 stuck on their arms.
So you could imagine how powerful fentanyl would have been.
Yes, and what I don't understand is, why do we run into these constant excuses? We spend millions and millions and millions and millions over years and years and years, and we get the same baloney over and over again. Well, this happened, that happened. No, nothing's happened except that the job isn't being done by law enforcement. If they were doing their job, there'd be no fentanyl in this country. And why aren't we going towards the core that China's doing something? Why doesn't China do something about it? They're the ones that are producing it. They're the ones that are putting it out there. And nobody seems to, oh, you can't say China is doing it. Why not? They are, like the truth's the truth, right?
Yeah, I'll ask our guest about that as well. My understanding is a lot of the fentanyl now is being made here, but I'll ask about that. Is it cross-border? Is it being created here? But I can hear the loss of faith that you have in investigating and prosecuting these cases, Chris.
Well, I was a soldier during Vietnam, and we were trained in the Marines to, what are they training these guys? Like, I don't even get it. Like, you could go into a court case that big that's going to save that's going to save lives and millions of dollars just in the hospitalization of people that end up overdosing and everything else. And
Chris, are you there? I think we may have lost our connection with Chris. I am so sorry for the loss of your son, and I can hear the grief in your voice as you speak, and the anger as well. Chris, thank you so much for calling. Wade Deisman, I'll get to, you talked about the public perception, right, of investigations and how the criminal justice system is doing on this. But can I also just talk about where is fentanyl coming from then? He talked about China.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that the jury is still out now. I think it's moving. It's a moving target. I think that's important to emphasize. But we do know that some of it is, of course, coming from overseas, or at least the ingredients for fentanyl are coming from overseas. But we are starting to see more of it made here. But just of note in that context, that's partially why the province is saying now that we need to get more on top of what's happening in our ports, because that's an easy point of access. That's why there's the discussion these days about bringing back the ports police, because those containers can come through and many of them go completely unsearched. So it only takes 1 or 2.
I'd love to ask you more about that, what needs to be done at the ports, at the borders, asking our callers as well. I mean, what's your reaction to this story? And how important is enforcement when it comes to fighting the drug crisis? What do you want to see when it comes to enforcement? What kinds of developments do you want to see? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. pound 690 on your cell phone. My guest is Wade Deisman, criminologist with Kwantlen Polytechnic University. It's 12:20 now, 1:20 in the Mountain Time Zone. This is BC Today. And in light of this, Victoria Police Chief Constable Del Manac apologized on Wednesday for what he said any contributions his officers had made to the demise of Project Juliet. He did stop short of pointing a finger at anyone beyond the officer Rob Ferris.
I'm proud of my staff and the work that they did in identifying the activities of this officer. And I want to commend them for their effort to continue the investigation of serious crime despite the impact of Mr. Ferris on the department. We're disappointed at the outcome of the file, which involved a significant amount of resources and dedication from our officers. Now it's clear that there were several points of failure in our processes. There were decisions that should have been made differently and changes that can be made in the way that we do our work, and I apologize for our contribution to this outcome. But we are still and always committed to the safety of our communities, which remains a top priority. We will continue to work to address the problems of drug trafficking and organized crime in the City of Victoria and the Township of Esquimalt, and implement the lessons learned from the process to help ensure a more impactful outcome in the future.
Victoria Police Chief Constable Del Manac speaking on Wednesday. We're asking you for your reaction to this story that broke this week. Again, CBC's Jason Proctor, he investigated this story and broke the story that a courtroom judgment revealed how charges from a major drug bust in Victoria 3 years ago ultimately flopped, and all because police concealed key details about one of the officers who was initially involved in the probe. It was a case that was hailed as a major success. Police in Victoria calling it getting to the top of the fentanyl trafficking pyramid. And now those charges, have been stayed. We're taking your reaction on the open line and asking you about what role and how important is enforcement in the drug crisis that is really grappling BC, of course, many, many years now. Let's go to Andy on the line in Surrey. Hi, Andy. Thanks so much for calling in.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I love your show.
Thanks very much. And what did you want to say about this story?
Well, yeah, it's a real shame, the way it's turned out. I'm just curious to know, don't we have other methods to at least get those kingpins, like maybe the proceeds of crime or something? If they had a bust of $3 million of equipment, I mean, there must be some money that we could recoup from them, at least get them that way.
Is there another route, perhaps? Andy, thank you very much. I think we have the right guest to ask that question. You said earlier, Wade Deisman, that this was a judicial stay, which meant that it could not be pursued again. But are there other routes, like proceeds of crime, is what Andy was talking about?
Mm-hmm. There may be other routes, and I'm sure that they're looking at that question now of closing all the doors if they can possibly. They can go after proceeds of crime, but again, they have to satisfy the burden of proof in establishing that these are proceeds of crime. And I think the consideration here is that the evidence might now be considered what's called fruit from the poisonous tree, because it was arrived at in the way that it was arrived at, and then produced to the court in the way that it was. So, in Canada, once a judicial stay is implemented, then folks cannot be tried again or punished, for that matter, on that evidence. So I think it's a difficult question in this particular case, but more generally, absolutely, I think the province has been pulling out all the stops in terms of enforcement and interdiction.
Andy, it's a good question. Thanks so much for raising it. Sylvia is our next caller now. Our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And Sylvia's on the line from Vancouver. Hi, Sylvia.
Hi there. I'm actually really quite appalled by this. the resources, the fact that, a bunch of police stations got giant raises for jobs well done. I would think that this would be almost a no-brainer to avoid anything like this. And I wonder what happened to the police officer that instigated this swap. Is he back on the job? And personally, I don't think that this is going to go anywhere. The fact that every announcement that the situation is getting more and more, whatever we're doing isn't working. It's not enough. I hate to say it's not enough. I think we have to be trailblazers and implement something like a major bust like this, like a 20-year sentence to deter manufacturers or import. Like, it's got to be significant. And it can't be deterred. It's got to be, okay, this is what it's going to be, no matter what. Between the judges, the police officers, with everybody, so that we can at least give it a try, because nothing else is working. And it's just the people that got off the hook are probably throwing a party and laughing. It's embarrassing. I feel really, really sad about this.
Record number of deaths again last year from the toxic drug crisis. Sylvia, thank you very much for your call. Alice is up next in Vancouver. Hi, Alex. Alice, rather, sorry. Hi, Alice.
Alex. Doesn't really matter.
It is Alex.
But,
My apologies.
Yeah, no worries. I was just listening in, and I just wanted to add that there's a theory called the Iron Law of Prohibition, which is talked about by Professor Leo Beletsky. And it's that when we clamp down on the illicit drug trade through interdiction, it leads to more potent and deadly drugs. So that's how we went from opium to heroin to fentanyl, right? And the classic example of this is also during alcohol prohibition, when alcohol was made illegal. Instead of people drinking beer, they had to drink moonshine because it's much easier to transport, stronger, more concentrated alcohols. There's less volume, right? So interdiction creates more deadly drugs. Also, there's a recent study that just came out showing that if you actually look at the areas where drug busts occur, in the immediate surrounding areas, there are increases in overdoses because people don't have access to their usual dealers who they have relationships with and trust and know what they're getting. And so they have to go to people they don't know, or there are not as many drugs available, and so their tolerance goes down for whatever period of time. Then when they buy again, they're more likely to overdose.
So when it comes to enforcement, you're saying that the focus should not necessarily be on that then?
Yeah, I'm saying if we want to end crime and all the abuses that come with that, we need to make drugs legal. We need to end prohibition, and that's how we will make the world safer, and that's how we will tackle the overdose crisis.
And do you mean going beyond the current safe supply program in BC right now?
Yes. As Coroner Lisa Lapointe said, we need a non-medicalized model.
Alex, thank you so much for your call.
No worries.
Glad you contributed to this. Wade Deisman.
Thank you.
Various, of course, we talk about 4 pillars and all of that. So she's saying, you talked about earlier, it's a moving target. Organized crime is a moving target. Are you ever really going to be able to clamp down on drug trafficking?
Well, let me say first off to the first caller, I think the sentiment is one that's shared, that more is necessary and we need to find ways to be more effective. But the doctrine of maximum severity, which is I'm going to punish them and I'm going to punish them a lot, doesn't work, generally speaking, in cases where we're dealing with drug overlords like this, because frankly, they're dealing on a day in, day out basis with the reality that they could get killed at any time, right? So this idea that they might have to do 20 or 30 years in jail is nothing compared to the fact that they might get shot tonight, right? So deterrence doesn't seem to work in this case of those who are hardened. On to the second caller, I really, really appreciate this intervention because I think this is the kind of literacy that we're developing here in the Lower Mainland around different programs and approaches. And I think the idea of decriminalization, legalization, that kind of thing, that the country that's on the forefront in terms of this approach is, of course, Portugal, and it's long been heralded as a success story. But I have to share that recently there's starting to be some cracks and seams appearing in that kind of success story, where where it seemed like decriminalization and legalization was going to result in a kind of normalization, treatment, that kind of thing. Now it's seeming like it's not getting better. In fact, consumption levels are increasing again. So I don't think that, so far anyway, there's really a magic bullet. I don't think that deterrence in one area is going to result in kind of a general deterrence effect or diffusion of that deterrence effect more generally. I do think that the answer has to be a combination, right? So it has to be treatment, definitely has to be deterrence, it has to be prevention. And I think now we're getting upriver, and that's where we need to be going. We need to be thinking about deep prevention. So what are the root causes of the need for fentanyl or other drugs in our society? And I think that's where we get to issues of social equity. I mean, there's no question that many of the folks who end up addicted to opioids are struggling in their lives in other ways. And we know this when we go to the downtown east side, but we know from other areas as well. The earliest caller who called and he was talking about his son, how his son ran into trouble, right? Mm-hmm. So that's about the primary social safety net. And that's something we all need to be concerned about, right? Law and order approaches are important, but so are social welfare approaches and compassion and empathy and understanding.
This is a conversation that will continue, but I really appreciate this discussion today with you and our callers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wade Deisman, criminology professor with Kwantlen Polytechnic University. Thank you so much for all of your calls as well. Really appreciate hearing from all of you. 12:32 now. This is BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Eliot. Thanks for being with us as well. And coming up, we will take your questions to gardening expert Brian Minter. Right now, it's time for CBC News Update. And here's Zara Premji.
Good afternoon. Students in 5 high schools in Surrey will notice some changes in September. The school board has agreed to hold classes over extended hours. The goal is to try to alleviate some of the overcrowding in Surrey schools. And the province has named a new acting chief coroner for BC. John McNamee has been appointed to the position temporarily. This follows the retirement of long-standing chief coroner Lisa Lapointe, who was in the position for 13 years. And Vancouver police are investigating the death of a person early this morning. A pedestrian attempted to cross Howe Street at Drake in downtown Vancouver and stepped into the path of an oncoming car. Police say it appears the vehicle was going through the intersection on a green light. The incident happened just before 6 o'clock when it was still dark outside. Now the BC weather from Environment Canada. For the North Coast, it's looking pretty sunny in the high to 7 degrees. For the Peace region, the sun as well is sticking around. High is sitting around +2. For the Central Interior, you guessed it, mainly sunny and a high of -4. For the Boundary and Kootenay regions, clear and cool today and tomorrow. Highs to +3. For the Okanagan and Southern Interior, mainly sunny as well and a high to 1. Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, you guessed it again, mainly sunny, windy at times and a high to 8. Thanks for joining us with your CBC News Update.
We are heading into the Family Day long weekend.
Yes, family time.
Do you have any plans?
Yes, I think I'm going to relax. I think I'm going to read a good book.
Oh my goodness.
And then, of course, spend some time with my grandparents that I'm very lucky to have. How about you?
I have a kid's birthday to plan and to execute this weekend. So not a lot of relaxation, unfortunately, but still is going to be a lot of fun. So there you go. But it's a busy weekend. There's so much going on.
So many events. We were looking it up.
Yeah. And Just for Laughs. There's you can go to
There's the carnival happening somewhere. My mom was saying we should go. And then we were kind of hoping it's going to rain so that no one will go and then we'll go and then it won't be crowded. So there are options.
There are options. Well, you got to go. Your mom wants you to go.
Got to do what she wants, of course.
I was looking at the Just for Laughs lineup. It looks really good.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed.
I'm pretty impressed. I would like to go. I don't have any plans yet, but I would like to go.
You make sure you do something fun.
One tip for comedy shows: don't sit in front.
Unless you want to. If you want to be the target, then please go ahead.
Sure, the butt of all the jokes, go right ahead. That's not me.
Hot take, I love it.
The last comedy show I went to was Atsuko Okatsuka, who was over at the Vogue. I sat only because it was what I could get at that time. I sat
Right.
at the very back, like I could feel the wall behind me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it was still great. But I thought safer back here anyway.
It's a little safer, right? Yeah.
Away
There's
from
nothing
the
coming
firing
slinging
line.
at the wall.
No, not going to be any fodder for jokes.
No.
So there you go. That's my tip for the day.
I'll take it with me. Thank you.
Enjoy the carnival.
Thank you.
Say hi to your mom.
I will.
She's probably listening.
She probably is. Let's be real. Watching and listening
Thanks,
both.
Sarah.
Okay, bye.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on BC Today. We're on Radio 1, on CBC Television, live streaming as well on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page, our website, cbc.ca/BC, or you can use the CBC News app. Yes, so many ways to join us and take us in. And if you want to call us, I'm going to give the phone numbers out as well, because for sure, you want to get through to Brian Minter today. He's going to talk about pruning. That's the word of the day for Brian. He says it's really important right now. He'll tell us why, when, and how to prune our damaged trees and shrubs. As always, he's here to take your questions. You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone as well. If you'd like to email bctoday@cbc.ca. Brian is here now from Chilliwack. Hello, Brian.
Hi, Michelle. It's great to be here. And thanks for prepping the whole issue about pruning. We normally prune this time of year, number one, to clean our trees up, any dead wood or diseased wood. We take it out, opening up our trees to allow more sunlight and air to get in, so we have cleaner trees during the summertime, and overall improving the health of the trees. But Michelle, the added situation this year is because of the severe cold we had, a lot of folks are not sure whether our plants are going to come back or not. I've had many folks come and see me about the rhododendrons with burnt leaves and so on, and azaleas and the like. And this is where I wanted to just get a little bit of knowledge out there to make everybody happy. Number one is, until we get consistent hot weather, and honestly, it's going to be sometime in late April, you're not going to really know how much your trees have been damaged. More sensitive ones, of course, because of the cold. But it's obvious where dead wood is. If you scrape the stem with your fingernail and there's no green underneath, that's a good sign that those branches are dead. So a light pruning right now on all damaged trees, and that would be just kind of the wait and see what's going to happen a little bit later on. My greater concern is though, and not picking on the guys at all here, but in any case, a lot of folks are trying to help out around the outside and out busy pruning all the flowers off all our trees, and we don't want to do that. For example, there's many winter flowering plants right now that have buds on them, but many starting to come. Forsythia, the little buds are starting to, color up a wee bit right now. You can see that yellow coming, which we all look forward to.
Yes.
But hydrangeas are the big one. The traditional mop head hydrangeas, if you go and look, you'll see the buds are already set to open up later in the spring. And so don't cut them off. That's really what we're saying. And as I talked to you this morning, Michelle, it's about new wood and plants that produce flowers on old wood.
Yes.
The hydrangeas all produce buds on old wood. So let's leave them. Let's enjoy those buds when they come along. And the plant, Michelle, will tell you a lot of things. Their buds are swelling. If it's got buds, please don't cut them back. Wait until they finish flowering and then prune them back. And that's the difference. And but the PG hydrangeas, the big cone-shaped ones that are so beautiful in the summertime and they love the heat of summer, they bloom on new wood. So yeah, prune them back, tidy them up, and anytime you like. For fruit trees, remember, for the apple and pear and plum trees, take the center out so the branches radiate out of the center, giving you an open vase for more air and sunlight to get in to give us more fruit. And remember, sideward bearing branches produce little spurs and fruit, where the upright branches not so much. On a cherry tree, it produces with a very strong leader. It's the sweet cherries. So leave that leader in place and prune more of in a pyramid form. So these are all things that we're learning right now. And I have to say one thing too. On our azaleas and rhododendrons, where the branches and leaves might be really beat up right now, leave them alone. Please don't prune them. All our azaleas and rhodos, and even if they've gotten too tall over time, let the blooms come out. and then the new growth will begin. And when the new growth begins, then you can prune those back to get a smaller, more compact plant, clean up a lot of the dead leaves and so on that have come over the wintertime or the hot summer. We were seeing some of that as well. So it's just a question of timing and when we're pruning, but it's a great time to go out and do that now, because pretty soon they're going to start opening up. The blossoms are going to start to come, and it's about enjoying them and make a few mistakes. That's okay. It's normal. That's how we learn. But anyway, it's time to begin pruning.
It's not a problem to make mistakes. Okay,
Nope.
I will take that to
all.
heart.
Yeah.
Brian is here. Brian Minter taking your gardening questions. And thank you for mentioning cherry trees. Every time you mention cherry trees, I think, does he know I have a cherry tree? And, and
I do. You mentioned that.
I have mentioned it. And so I almost was like, is that a shout out to me secretly?
Yeah.
Brian, thank you for that. And we have lots of people on the line already with some questions for you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. And Lucy is joining us now from Victoria with a question about fertilizer. Hi, Lucy.
Hi. I'm sorry it's not a pruning question, but we have a number of raised garden beds for vegetables and sunflower beds. And each year our local Oak Bay High School does a horse manure compost sale. And so
Lovely.
I buy bags of that, stir it into my garden, use some of our own, compost from food waste, but not 100% sure if the horse manure is the best. And if I should be testing soil or use it or what.
Yeah, Lucy, good question, because I think often we have the access to, some farm manures and so on, which are great to put in the bed. A couple of things about manures: if it's aged a wee bit, so it's broken down a little bit more, it's going to be more valuable. But and if it's really fresh, then you probably want to put it in an area in your garden somewhere where it can break down a little bit more. But at our gardens, we always used to use, we have local farming community here. We've used horse manure one year, we'd use cow manure another year, we'd use poultry manure. So we always change it up a wee bit, not the same thing over and over again, but essentially it's invaluable, it's an organic matter, and it actually provides nutrient to plants. So yeah, putting it in, working it into our soil this time of year would be absolutely great. And aged a little bit would be better, Lucy, but go for it, and please take advantage of it.
Okay. Sounds like I use something different this year, get the horse manure, age it, and then use it next year maybe.
Yeah, well, even during the growing season as well. I mean, it makes such a difference. You want to make sure that it's not fresh. If it has a little bit of aging to it, then it's perfect, because it's going to be more readily available to the plants, and that's really what it's all about. Yeah.
Let it, I guess, ferment. Is that what it does? Ferment a bit.
Break down. Yeah.
Break down. Lucy, thank you so much for the call. Really good to get you ready, right? Get you ready for the upcoming spring season as well. Wendy is up next now at Digby Island. Hi, Wendy. You have a question about day lilies.
Oh, hi. Yes, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
This will be year 3 that I've had an issue with daylilies getting some kind of bug that gets into the flower, and just when you think it's going to open, it wilts, and you pop it open, and there's little wormy things in there. Yeah, and I have seen a tiny insect as well, so I assume it's some kind of fly.
Yeah, there is an insect, and Wendy, I've just forgotten the name of it, that does attack it, and it has not been so bad the past few years, but it gets into the flower, and it's almost like a thrip, where in fact it rasps the inside of the flower and it never opens properly. And Wendy, you're not going to like this, but one of our really great daylily breeders and growers has said, and this situation happens in the garden, sometimes it's really important to allow your daylilies to set bud, so they're all ready to open, and then cut all the blooms off to get rid of the insect once and for all. And that's a harsh thing to I know to say to people who love their daylilies coming out, but that we don't really have on the domestic market any type of insect control that is going to make it work. So maybe try it on some of your plants. Just take the buds off, and because you're getting the insect away and destroy them, that's the only way to go. If it's not too bad, if it's minor, just keep an eye on it. But it's physical control that you have to do with the daylilies, and that's direct from one of our best growers in British Columbia.
Wow.
Yep. well, that's what I'll do then. I'll lop some heads. And I'm pro sheep manure.
Okay, good.
Okay, bye.
Well,
Thank-
Andy, thank you very much.
Okay.
Sheep manure. Let's just clarify. That was very funny. Wendy at Digby Island. Victoria is on the line now in Vancouver. Hi, Victoria.
Hi. Oh, Brian, I need your help so bad. I have about 50 Himalayan sweet box plants. Some are very mature. Everything else seems to be fine, but for some reason this year, not only did I not get that stunning aromatic scent throughout my yard, all the leaves on all the plants are brown.
Okay. Now, this is really important, Victoria. Are they growing in mostly shade?
No, some are in shade, some are in part sun, part shade, but like some have been here for a decade and some are 2 seasons old. But all of them are looking...
Thank you. Yeah, because they are a shade plant, Victoria. That's why I was asking the question. And at this point here, now I don't know how bad in Vancouver. We did have pretty severe winter. After being so mild with an El Nino year, then we got the severe cold. And I was looking at the temperatures in Vancouver, and I was surprised at how cold it did get. But I mean, it's a Himalayan Serica is what it is. I mean, they are pretty tough, but it is a broadleaf. And soft broadleafs, when we get the sudden cold out of nowhere, it can do some damage. And Victoria, I think all you have to do at this point is sometimes, like Wendy we're talking about here, I would go and prune them. I wouldn't do it now, but wait till we can see some growth, some actual new growth coming, and I would prune the Serica coca back maybe about a third because it really helps them. We grow them, and when we prune them back, we get lush new growth coming out of the bottom of the stems. So I think it's either summer damage or winter damage, one or the other, but it is the situation right now. And when we see the new growth coming, I'd say probably 2 or 3 weeks, let's give them a hard prune, and not right back, but about a third to half, and you'll find that they'll recover very nicely for you for the summertime, and you'll get that wonderful show next year. So sorry, Victoria, but I think it's one of those things we need to do.
When you say a third to half, some of these are like chest height.
Oh my! Well, you must have the Ruscifolia types, the bigger ones. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go more than a third to half. I think you're probably going to go at least half to 2/3 back down, because unless you push them down, Victoria, unless you really push them down hard, you're not going to get that new growth coming back. That's going to make the plant look good. So it's a heartbreak for a short period of time, but trust me, honestly, they're going to come back.
You sound in pain, but short-term pain, long-term gain.
Long-term gain.
Yeah. I want to say thank you. Well, I will say thank you, but that's a painful message.
It is. And Victoria, too, you might give them some timed release fertilizer once the new growth starts to come. I'd say like a 14-14-14 would be wonderful. That'll encourage the new growth to be more vigorous and give you just a nicer show. So if you can do that, Victoria, please. And no, wait until the new growth comes after you prune, then give it that little bit of feed, and it'll make all the difference in the world.
You make all the difference in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
Thank you.
You recovered, Victoria.
A little. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It'll be worth it. I'm so glad. Good luck to you. Glad you called. And we actually have some pruning emails as well. So let's maybe get some of these to you. Let's see here. Patty asks, my question for Brian is how to prune my little potted bay leaf. It is frozen.
Yeah, and that worries me a lot. Bay leaves are basically zone 8, means they're really quite tender. And if it didn't have a lot of protection, we're probably going to have some dieback on it. And I hope it's just dieback so we don't lose the plant. At this point here, this is awfully important. Don't do anything. Just simply leave it as it is. And when we start getting warmer weather, we're going to find the degree in which this plant has been damaged or cut back. So no pruning right now. Just pick off the dead leaves, let it drop, and then we're going to wait and see. When we get our warm weather in mid to late April, then we'll know for sure. And then we can prune as hard as we like, because bay laurels do break new growth out of old wood, but we got to make sure that wood is alive and well.
Okay, there you go. Thank you so much for that. And Arlene writes, when do I prune my lavender Munstead and how hard?
Oh, Great question. That is so important because we all visualize this beautiful round lavender, which looks good. And we go out in our garden, it looks scruffy as all the dickens right
Yes.
now. Never prune your lavender, the angustifolia types, until you can see the new growth coming out of the old hardwood. That's one thing I love about lavender. It pushes new growth out. So wait, and it'll probably be late March, early April when you see that new growth coming. Then you prune in a nice round form, just a nice oval form. And it'll all come kind of woody and stuff like that. That's okay because it'll grow very quickly and fill in. Second time to prune is when the new growth is in flower, when everything starts to flower and the flowers are just about to finish. Go back that time and prune it hard again in a nice round dome. That way, for the rest of summer, it'll fill in and give you that beautiful round look that we all love about our lavender.
Yes.
So those are the 2 times you prune.
Absolutely. And the smell as well, the scent.
Isn't it?
Yeah, wonderful.
Absolutely.
Our numbers again to get your call and your question into Brian Minter, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. On your cell phone, you can hit pound 690. And our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. Amy is our next caller from Surrey. And you had a question about a hellebore, Amy?
Oh, actually, I have 2 comments, Mr. Minter. So 2 weeks ago, there was a caller about black leaves of Hellebores, and your suggestion was just to clean them out, and I did exactly what you suggested, and I see beautiful new blooms,
wonderful,
purple, and I think it helped it helped them to grow and then get the more sunshine. So I thank you for that. So I am.
You're welcome.
I am a great student.
It sounds like it, Amy.
Yeah.
And then, so my question today is actually I've been puzzling about this few years. So, Mr. Minter, so I have a fruit trees, flowering crabapple tree, a different kind of tree, but I see moss. Green, very beautiful color, light green moss. Some of the branches and some around the trunk. And then sometimes I scraped off, but I keep thinking, are they covering the injured skin, or I should leave it as like a Band-Aid, or can I recycle because they look so beautiful color? Can I use it for hanging a planter? And
okay. Yeah.
But, so I want to know the reason why they grow. Is it because too much moisture in the area, or is it covering or bacteria?
It is it's a moisture issue growing on our trees. And Amy, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it is not a good thing on a lot of our fruit trees and other trees you mentioned. And Amy, there's a very simple solution, which is primarily organic. If you can please get some lime sulfur, it's sold in garden stores. Now, we use the dormant ratio, which is a little bit thick. We can still use that until new buds start to come. So if you can just spray it 2 or 3 times with lime sulfur, and just make sure you don't have a white wall behind up against the building because it can stain white walls. But on the tree, 3 sprayings about 2 weeks apart will get that moss cleaned up for you, and it'll make the trees a lot healthier because of that. And the other thing is I want to mention that with lime sulfur, it's a great organic fungus control, and use the growing season ratio. If any of your leaves are starting to come out, still you can spray the trunks, but use your mildest solution, which is called the growing season spray. And if you get that cleaned on, Amy, that'll really make a difference on your trees. But remember, please don't use it on maples. Maple trees don't like lime sulfur. Viburnums is another series of family of plants that don't like lime sulfur, and nut trees. Those are the 3 that you don't use lime sulfur on at all. So if you can do that, Amy, it'll really clean up your trees and make them look nicer. Sorry about that artistic moss, but anyway, let's get it cleaned up, please.
Amy, thank you. Thank you so much. I have to move on to our next callers, unfortunately, but thank you so much for calling. And you reminded me that our listeners even though they are not the ones with the question, they benefit from these answers themselves for their own gardens as well. So I love that. And you are a great student. I do have just a couple of minutes left. So I want to get in Kimberly in Nelson. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi there.
Hi, Kim.
Brian. Thanks for taking my call.
You
So
bet.
the question is that we have about 4 or 5 flowering cherries, so not fruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of them are accolades.
Yep.
And they've been in the ground here for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and we haven't pruned them. And I would say the diameter of the trunks the big one is probably at most 4 inches. They vary a little bit.
Yep.
And, so the height, I guess the height I'm not so great at, but maybe, I don't know, 12 to 15 feet now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so just wondering, because you were saying leave the leaders, but that was for the fruit-bearing trees. How best to go about tackling these, considering we haven't really done it? Like, they do have kind of a vase formation, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
How to tackle them. Thank you.
Kimberly, thank you for that. That's a really important question. We have 2 seconds to answer you here. But number one, Accolade is a beautiful flowering cherry, but look at the shape of the tree. It is a vase shape. So first of all, no pruning right now. Let the tree bloom, enjoy the blossoms, and as soon as it's finishing blossoming, go back and bring it back down. I'm going to say sometimes you'll go as much as a third down, but when you prune, stand back and take a look at it. Prune in the shape of the tree. In other words, maintain that, because that's how Accolade wants to be able to grow. So just after flowering, then prune it. Also, every once in a while, we never do this around the drip line, the outside branches of the tree. Please work up the soil and work in some good organic matter around there, and give it some, I would say, flower and vegetable food, like a 10, 15, 19, because all the new growth that you're cutting, you're taking all the old growth off for the new growth to come. It'll really help that new growth develop buds for the next year, make a big difference for you. So Kimberly, as soon as you can wait them to the flower, then do your pruning, and then look after the tree and all the nutrient around, and you'll have great success. That's a great question, Kimberly. Thank you.
It sure is. We have so many pruning questions still, and I feel like we're going to have to do this again, Brian.
Yep, we will.
We
can do it tomorrow and the next day. I'm just kidding. Okay.
I apologize for pruning your questions. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks, everyone.
Brian Minter. He'll be back in 2 weeks. And of course, taking your gardening questions.